called the final solution. This was their belief that the only way to fix the problem that they perceived they had with Jews was basically to dispose of them. And they started doing this systematically in the middle stages of the war, so we're now in the 1940s. This picture is particularly famous because of the poor little boy in the front and the look on his face. The problems that were unfolding for the Jewish people were really only just beginning, as this map shows. It shows two types of camps that had been set up throughout Germany and Poland: the concentration camps or work camps and the so-called death camps, which were used pretty much entirely just to dispose of the Jewish population. This image here is one that captures the impressions that many people encountered of the concentration or death camps. Jewish people lined up behind barbed wire. Many Germans claimed after the war that they didn't know what was happening in the concentration camps, where gypsies and Jews and homosexuals were rounded up and killed. It's very difficult to believe that no one knew anything, but it's certainly possible that the Germans didn't know as much as we might think. Certainly many of the concentration camps were out of the way and were well patrolled, but people must have known something. This here shows the horrible systematic nature of the concentration camps. In here it shows a whole lot of clothing, bags, all of the personal belongings of the Jewish people, who were stripped naked, forced to shower. They had their heads shaved. There's even records of glasses, prosthetic limbs, and even gold from teeth being taken from the Jewish people before they were thrown into the concentration camps. All Jewish people were expected to wear this yellow star on their arm with the word Judah, meaning Jew. Similarly, in the concentration camps, others would be expected to wear an identifying mark. For example, homosexuals were expected to wear a pink triangle. One of the cruel jokes, I guess, of the Nazi concentration camps was this sign which existed above the gates, Arbeit macht frei, which means work will make you free. In pretty much no cases did work ever make anyone free, but it encouraged some people to believe that if they worked really hard and put their head down, then maybe they'd get out alive. As the war started coming to a close, many of the concentration camps came under areas that were liberated or freed by the USA, by the French, the British, and particularly the Russians. When they found it, they realised the scale of what had been going on. Certainly there had been warning that this sort of activity was taking place, but no one had taken it really seriously until the very latter stages of the war. In this particular image, what's happened is a train has been stopped that was carrying Jewish people to their deaths in one of the death camps. The German guards have fled, leaving the train behind and basically leaving the people to die. This is how many Jewish people met their fate during the Holocaust. This is a shower block, and many people went in believing that they were actually going in for cleaning. In reality, what would happen is somebody would pour what was called Zyklon, and Zyklon was a solidified gas which was put in pellet form. When it was exposed to air, it would leak out and basically poison everybody within a number of minutes. It would have been still a horrible and brutal death, but at least it was relatively quick. Still, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Jewish people died in this way. One of the really awful scenes that's difficult to imagine is the ovens that were used to burn the bodies of the Jews to make them absolutely indistinguishable. In this one, they found an oven that was still operating when it was liberated, and you can still see somebody's hands on the left-hand side. The ovens were brutal, but people who went into the ovens basically were dead. What happened as the end of the war came about, many of the Nazis realised that if they were found with these atrocities, that no one would ever let them forget. And so they began trying to hide the evidence. Mass graves, mass marches of Jewish people out into the woods where they would be killed were part and parcel of these late days of the war. When the camps became liberated, it was very clear that many Nazi so-called scientists had been performing really cruel and brutal tests on their Jewish prisoners, such as the one that is shown here in an official Nazi photograph. When the camps were liberated, the sight that was beheld by the soldiers of the Allied forces was horrifying. Those Jewish people who had survived were little more than skeletons. How they'd managed to live through harsh winters with barely any clothes, barely any food is difficult to know, but they did. These group of Holocaust survivors look on and smile knowing that they've been liberated. These two cheering their liberators, knowing that the Nazis have gone. These are the sort of conditions that they found in the camps, where men who had basically become completely emaciated, virtually unable to move because they were starving. This shows how many Jewish people were stacked up basically on big flatbeds. At the end of the war, after the Holocaust, General Eisenhower, who was in charge of the operations cleaning up the concentration camps and moving into Germany, decided that something had to be done. And he ordered that all the local population surrounding the death camps and the concentration camps should be rounded up and forced to see what had happened under their government. In this picture, it shows a group of German people expressing horror at the fact that what lies before them. The idea of this from General Eisenhower was that people would never be able to deny that the Holocaust had happened. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. In this particular one, taken from an anti-Semitic website from today, it's got a teacher saying, "Remember children, always bring up the Holocaust at every opportunity. Make them feel sorry for you and guilty at the same time," with some fairly nasty looking Jewish stereotypes there. This is from 2012 and shows that, unfortunately, despite General Eisenhower's plans, some people still argue that the Holocaust never happened, or that the Holocaust wasn't as big as what people claimed. These people are called Holocaust deniers. In some places it's illegal to be a Holocaust denier, and for example in Germany, if you express denial of the Holocaust, you will be imprisoned. It's hard to fathom the scale of something this large. 6 million people died, a huge proportion of the Jewish population of Europe dead.